Good morning, dear friends. Today is October the 21st in the year 2003. We are in the Lower Hamlet, Dharma Temple, in our second day of the IP retreat. Our intention is not to give you ideas. Even ideas of peace. Our idea is, our intention is to offer you an opportunity to recognize the seed of peace and joy that are already in yourself. A Dharma talk is like a cloud, a rain. And the rain can help the seeds in the soil to sprout and to bring forth flowers and fruit. The rain is not the seeds, but the rain can help the seed to sprout and bring forth the flowers of understanding, the flowers of peace, the flowers of joy. That is why it's not my intention to give you ideas. It is not your purpose to come here and receive ideas and put it in a notebook. When there is rain, we allow the rain to penetrate into the soil. And if the rain is enough, and then all the seeds within the soil will be penetrated by the rain, and they have a chance to sprout. So during a talk like this, we don't need to do anything. We don't need to try to understand, or to try to record what is being said. In a talk like this, you just allow yourself to be penetrated by the rain. And suddenly you find that the seed of understanding, wisdom, and love in you sprouted. There's nothing whatsoever to do. Just sit there and allow the rain to penetrate. And you have to believe that the seed of peace, the seed of joy, the seed of happiness are already in you. The seed of the kingdom of God is in you. It's not outside of you. If you think that God is outside of you, and if you are looking for Him or for her, you never encounter God. It's like a wave running to search for water. She never encounters water. She has to go home to herself with a strong conviction that the water is within, and then there is a chance. You are not looking for something outside. When the brothers and sisters came up this morning to chant, they did not address these words to someone outside of them. That someone may be the Buddha, Bodhisattva, or God. No, they are not addressing God outside of them at all. And they know that. And this chanting is only a kind of rain in order to water the seeds of understanding of peace within themselves. And when you stand up and bow to this direction, that does not mean that the Buddha, God, is in this direction at all. When you bow like that, it touches the ultimate in us. It touches the good, the beautiful, the true in us. Doesn't mean that we believe that there is nothing in here, there is something on that direction. And if you believe that there's something on that direction, you are wrong. There's nothing whatsoever in that direction. Although there is a statue, Buddha statue sitting in, there is only a block of rock. It's not the Buddha. The Buddha is the capacity of understanding and loving that is in every cell of our body. So let us not be fooled by the form. The most precious gift we can offer to the person we love is our energy of understanding and love. If we do not have understanding and love within us, we have nothing to offer to him or to her or to the world. But how to cultivate understanding and love? You can cultivate understanding and love when you are alone. To be alone does not mean that you have to cut yourself off from society and go to a mountain and live in a cave. To live alone means you always are yourself. You do not lose yourself. You sit in a marketplace and yet you can be alone. You never lose yourself. You are always yourself. You are the boss. You are not a victim. When you practice walking mindfully, you are concentrated on your steps and your in-breath and out-breath. Even if you are walking with 200, 300 people, you are still alone. Because mindfulness and concentration are in you. And every breath, every step nourishes you and enriches you and brings you the energy of understanding, of love. Because if you are not yourself, you cannot love. You cannot offer anything. To live alone, to be alone means to come home to yourself and become the master of yourself and not to allow yourself to be carried away. And this is the practice of mindful walking, mindful breathing that can help you to always come home to yourself so that you can get the nourishment, you can cultivate awareness, understanding and love, because understanding is the foundation of love. If you don't understand, you cannot love. If you cannot understand yourself, you cannot love yourself. If you cannot understand him, you cannot love him. If you cannot understand her, you cannot love her. So understanding is the other word for love. Suppose your partner, you don't understand her. You then don't understand anything about her. you don't understand her suffering, her difficulties, her deepest aspiration, how can you say that you can love her? And how can you understand her? You have to be yourself. And when you look at her, you begin to see her suffering, to see her difficulty, to see her deepest aspiration. If you are not yourself, how can you listen? How can you see deeply like that? And when understanding is there, love is possible. Love is the water that springs from the source of understanding. Relationship is meaningful only when each person is himself, is herself. If you are empty, if the other person is empty, you don't have anything to offer to each other. Empty of what? Empty of understanding, empty of love, empty of beauty, empty of truth. And that is why we have to nourish us. That is why we have to be ourselves. Well, when we meet each other, we love to talk to each other. It's a pleasure to talk to each other. I know that. But if you don't practice mindfulness, talking is just allow yourself to be carried away by the talking. You don't have much to offer, and the other person has not much to offer to you. Of course, when you have something in you, very precious, you can share, you can offer. And talking is one of the ways to offer, to express yourself. But if you have only empty ideas, that's not a true gift. You might have opinions and ideas about everything. But that's not what the other person needs. What the other person needs is your understanding, your love, your insight. Your insight not as ideas, but as a living reality. You embody insight, you embody compassion and joy. And that is why relationships become meaningful. If we know the art of living alone, it means that if we know how to be ourselves, to cultivate in each moment the energy of peace, the energy of understanding, the energy of compassion, and then our relationship will become meaningful. Each of us has to be ourselves in order for the relationship to be meaningful. This is quite simple. And that is why when you have 5 minutes, when you have 10 minutes for yourself, you profit from these 5 or 10 minutes in order to enrich yourself, to become more solid, more free, more understanding, more compassionate. Because when we love someone, we want to offer him and to offer her what we have. And what we have is joy, understanding, compassion. And then the offering is the best thing we can make to our beloved one. We should ask ourselves, what can I offer her? What can I offer him? Do I have much to offer? If you want to have something to offer, cultivate it. And you cultivate it by being alone, working alone, cultivating alone. And the practice of mindful breathing, mindful walking can help you to come home to yourself and begin to get the energy of joy, of peace. Imagine a tree standing out there. Because the tree is always standing there, it continues to get the nutrition from the earth, the water, the minerals, and so on. With that kind of input, she can nourish her branch, her leaves, she can make flowers, she can make leaves, and so on. And she has so many things to offer to the world. And if we move the tree around, the root of the tree will have no chance to get in touch with the soil. And the root of the trees cannot get the nutriment that she needs in order to make flowers and fruit. We are like a tree. If you do not know to go home to us, to become fully present, to have a chance to cultivate, to practice looking deeply and listening deeply. And then we cannot get the nutriment for ourselves. We don't have much in order to offer to the person we love. In our retreat, we always have time for discussion. That we call Dharma Discussion. The kind of discussion that we can, in which we can offer our insight, our joy, our experiences. It's very, very, very meaningful. And there are those of us who don't feel that we should say anything because the thing we like to share is not very clear yet. You don't need to speak. You just need to listen, to allow the insight of other people to penetrate in us. Even if we don't say anything, we are profiting from the insight of everyone. And what we profit is not the ideas, but the living experiences that other people in a group have. And it's our duty to share. If you have something, some living experience in you, you should share to the Sangha. And this is a mindful talking. This is a real Dharma discussion, enriching everyone, everybody. And you are encouraged to share when you do have something to share. Each of us is like a tree. Every minute of our daily life, we get the nourishment. And of course, we have something, we can flower. We can offer the flowers and the fruit, and that is our contribution. The gift we can make to the world. Yesterday we talked about how to go home to ourselves in order to have an opportunity to get in touch with the wonders of life that are available within us and around us. We practice walking in the kingdom of God. We practice getting in touch with what is refreshing and healing in us and around us. This is so important. And that is to get the kind of nutriment for our nourishment and the nourishment of our beloved one, walking in the kingdom of God, touching the wonders of life. And you cannot do that without going home to yourself. Our time together is very precious. And therefore, if you have 5 or 10 minutes, please enjoy the practice of being yourself, of nourishing yourself, going home to the here and the now. Because we want to become an instrument for peace, of peace, for ourselves, for our family, for our society. That is what we want. We don't want anything less than that. And that is why we should profit from the time being together. Of course, at home, when you go home, we can continue. But if you are not solid enough, you cannot continue the practice when you are home. That is why while we are with the Sangha, we should try our best so that the practice become a habit. The Sangha means the community. A community where everyone knows how to do it, how to be alone, how to enrich himself or herself, how to get the nourishment and the healing. And there are things that alone we cannot do, but with the Sangha it becomes very easy. Alone we will be lazy, although we know how to sit, we know how to listen to the bell, we know how to practice mindful walking, but we don't do it because no one around us is doing that. And that is why the presence of a Sangha whose members are practicing is a great encouragement, great support. That is why in a Sangha the practice becomes very easy. You naturally do it, you don't have to make any effort. That is why you have to profit from the time you are with the Sangha, so that our practice becomes a habit. And we need the practice in order to be ourselves. When it has become a habit, and then when we go home, we'll be able to do it without the Sangha. In our practice of getting in touch with the wonders of life, we might encounter difficulties. You know that the morning is very beautiful, the hills, the mist, the sunrise, beautiful. You want to get in touch with that beauty. You want to stand there, to sit there and contemplate, and to allow the beauty of nature of the morning to penetrate in you, because you know this is a very nourishing. But sometime an emotion, a feeling comes up and prevent us to enjoy what is enjoyable, that is happening in the here and the now. Why the other person is capable of allowing himself to enjoy the morning's, the glorious sunrise, and allow all the beauty to penetrate into his body and his mind. We are blocked with our worries, our fear, our anger. And the beauty of the sunrise cannot penetrate into us. Some anxiety, some worries, some anger prevent us from getting in touch with the wonders of life. And it prevents the kingdom of God to be in touch with us. It prevents us to be in touch with the kingdom of God, in the pure land of the Buddha. What to do in these circumstances? We believe that we have to remove that feeling, that emotion, in order to be free again, so that the beautiful sunshine, sunrise can penetrate us. We consider our fear, our anger, our worries as an enemies. Without them, we are free. We can get in touch with the many wonders of life. But because they are there, that is why we cannot get the nourishment that we need. The practice offered in Plum Village is that in moments like that, we should stick to our mindful breathing, and we should recognize the afflictions that are there, whether it is a feeling of anger, a feeling of frustration, a feeling of fear. And with that energy of mindfulness generated by mindful breathing, we can recognize that feeling. Suppose that is a feeling of worry, anxiety. Breathing in, I feel that anxiety is in me. Breathing out, I smile to my anxiety. I have the habit to worry, even if worry is not necessary. I still worry, and every time I feel the worry coming up, I know that happiness is not possible. I would like to ban worry away, to remove it. Sometimes they call me Mr. Worry, Madame Worry, because I used to worry. I am used to worry a lot. And I know that when I worry, I cannot get in touch with the wonders of life. I cannot be happy. So I get angry at my worry. I don't want it. But worry is part of us. And that is why when our worry come up, we have to know how to handle it nicely, peacefully, because it is possible to handle our fear, our worries peacefully. And you can do it if you have the energy of mindfulness. If you want to have the energy of mindfulness, practice mindful breathing, practice mindful walking, and you have the energy of mindfulness in order to recognize and embrace tenderly your worry, your fear, or your anger. When your baby suffers and cried, you don't want to punish your baby, because your baby is you. You don't want to hit your baby. You don't want to throw your baby outside by the window. No. Your fear, your anger is your baby. Don't imagine that you can throw it away by the window. Don't try to do violence to your anger, your fear, your worries. The practice is to recognize it. Oh my baby, I know you are there. I will take good care of you. Continue to practice mindful breathing, mindful walking. And with that energy generated by the practice, you recognize, you smile to it, you embrace it very tenderly. And this is a non-violence. This is the practice of non-violence directed to your worry, your fear, your anger. If you are angry at your anger will be multiplied by 10 times to angry at your anger. This is not very wise. With anger, you suffer already a lot. And if you get angry at your anger, you suffer much more. That is why it's not wise to get angry at your anger. The real practice is to recognize your anger that is coming up, to smile to it as tenderly as you can. Good morning, my dear little anger. I know you are there. I will take good care of you. The baby is not pleasant when it cries and it kicks. But you, as a mother, you have to pick it up very tenderly and hold the baby very tenderly into your arms. And the tenderness of the mother will begin to penetrate into the body of the baby. And if you continue for a few minutes, the baby will feel better and the baby may stop crying. Your anger is your baby. Your worries, your fear is your baby. You should know how to take care of your baby. You should not try to punish the baby or ban the baby. We have to learn how to handle our emotions, our feelings. And without the basic practice, namely the practice of mindful breathing, mindful walking, mindful cooking, mindful tea drinking, you have no way to generate the energy of mindfulness. It is that energy of mindfulness that helps you to recognize your pain, your sorrow, and help you to embrace it tenderly. And after having embraced it, your pain, your sorrow tenderly for a few minutes, you feel a relief. And your baby can agree to be quiet. And now you can enjoy the beautiful sunrise. Now you can allow yourself to be nourished by the beauty, the wonders of life around you and inside of you. This is a very basic practice. And you should be able to do it, to master the practice. Sometimes we cannot do it alone because we are just beginners. We have some mindfulness, some concentration. But our mindfulness and concentration are not strong enough to hold our baby that is huge, a big baby. That is why we need the Sangha. The Sangha is a community. And we can borrow the energy of the Sangha. Because the Sangha, whose members are practicing, is generating the collective energy of mindfulness. The collective energy, the group energy is strong. And if you know how to borrow it, you'll be strong enough to hold your baby and not to be overwhelmed by the suffering. This is very important. That is why in the Buddhist tradition we speak of taking refuge in the Sangha. When you throw a rock into a river, no matter the rock, how small the rock is, it will sink into the bottom of the river. Every rock will sink. But if you have a boat, you can keep many kilos of rock floating. You can even keep tons of rock floating. The same is true here. If you are alone, you may sink with your suffering into the river of suffering. But if you have a Sangha, a community of practice, and if you allow the Sangha to embrace your pain and your sorrow, you will float. You will not sink into the river of suffering. This is very important. When you are in a Sangha like this, you allow the pain, the fear, the sorrow to be recognized and embraced by the Sangha. You are borrowing the collective energy of the Sangha in order to recognize, embrace your pain. Dear Sangha, please see my pain. Please help me to embrace the pain, the sorrow, the fear in me. And you can survive, you can float. And many of us have profited from the collective energy of the Sangha. And if you see that the Sangha is precious, is crucial in your practice, when you go home, try your best to set up a group of people practicing with you. And everyone will profit from the group. That is your boat. You need a boat in order to float. Sangha building is very important. In Plum Village, we do nothing except Sangha building. Everything is dedicated to Sangha building. Cooking, cleaning, sitting, walking, everything is for the sake of Sangha building. Because the Sangha can be the refuge of many, many, many people. If the Sangha is solid, is happy, is mindful, and then many people can come and take refuge so that they can transform the suffering, their fear, their anger. When you practice well, you become your own refuge. You become the refuge for your beloved one, for your family. And you can transform your family into a Sangha, into a refuge. And other people can come and take refuge in your family. And if you are capable of bringing a few families together, you set up a Sangha. And if the practice goes well within your group becomes a refuge for many people. And that is Sangha building. There is no hope without Sangha building. We are in a Sangha like a drop of water in a river. Allow the Sangha to hold us, to transport us. Don't be a drop of oil in the river, not mixing with other drops of water. That way you will arrive nowhere. Allow yourself to be transported by the Sangha. Allow your pain, your sorrow, your suffering to be recognized, to be embraced by the Sangha. You have to trust the Sangha. Dear Sangha, I suffer. Please help me to embrace my suffering. Imagine you are a drop of water who like to go to the ocean. If you go alone, you might be evaporated in just a few days. But if you allow yourself to be embraced and transported by the Sangha, well, you go to the ocean. The Sangha will guide, you help. Sometimes the Sangha push a little bit, and you are always in the stream. You are no longer a drop of oil. You have become the river. And as a river, you don't have to suffer anymore. You suffer only when you are a separate drop of water. Please remember, you suffer only when you are a drop of water. If you have become a river, you don't have to suffer anymore. Allow yourself to be embraced by the Sangha, to be transported by the Sangha, to be carried by the Sangha. Accept your Sangha as yourself. Become the Sangha, become the river. This is a very wonderful practice. It does not need a lot of time. You just allow yourself to be the river. That those of us who are capable of handling our own suffering, because our practice of mindfulness is solid. We have the energy of mindfulness, of concentration. Every time the pain, the sorrow come up, we are able to recognize it by ourselves alone. We are able to embrace and smile to it alone. And by the walking, by the breathing, by the looking deeply, we can understand the block of sorrow. We can transform it. But there are those of us who are not as strong. We need the Sangha. When you sit alone, you rely on your energy of mindfulness, alone on your energy of mindfulness and concentration. And sometimes your mind wanders. You lose your mindfulness, you lose your concentration, you begin to think of this or of that. But when there is another friend sitting close to you, you are two. And now the solidity of the other person sitting close to you inspire you. So every time your mind begins to wander, you bring it home to you and you continue the practice of mindful breathing, mindful sitting to cultivate more solidity, more freedom. It is our solidity and freedom that bring us happiness and joy, understanding and love. If you continue to be a victim of the environment, if you continue to be a victim of your fear, your anger, your worries, happiness is not possible. Peace is not possible. And you have not much to offer to him or to her, your beloved one. And that is why we have to profit from the Sangha. We have to profit from a brother or a sister who knows the practice. Sometimes we feel that we cannot go on anymore. We are going to crack. We are the victim of despair. We are not on our own anymore. We are to give up. And suddenly we remember that we have a friend. And we wish that at this very moment, if that friend sits close to you, you'll be okay. Because that friend has solidity and joy. And if that friend sits close to you in this moment, you'll be able to survive. But that friend is not here. She's far away. She is in Tokyo or Los Angeles. And you feel very well, very clearly that if you have a chance to go to him, go to her and sit close to him, you can survive. Because alone you are lost. You know that you cannot restore yourself. If you feel like that, if you feel yourself in such a condition, you should try everything in order to go to him or to her. Abandon everything. Give up everything. Just try to go to him or to her. Because you need the balance. And no one around you here can help you to restore the balance so that you can survive this very difficult moment. Have to go to him, go to her. And when you arrive and sit close to that person, you feel that you can survive. You think that you can breathe, you can walk, you can drink your tea, you are okay. But you also know that you cannot stay with her all the time. In a few weeks you have to go home to your place. And without her, without that person, you lose the balance again. You rely on someone else in order to maintain the minimum of balance that help you to survive. My advice to you is why you are with her, him, with her, and feel you can survive. You have to profit. You have to profit from the moment in order to cultivate enough energy so that when you are alone, you can survive. So her presence, his presence is an opportunity. It's like during the summer and the autumn, the sky is clear, there's sunshine. You know that the winter will be harsh, and you need some wood in order to put in your stove to heat the house. You know that if you wait until the winter to cut the wood, it will not dry. You don't have enough time to dry for you to heat the house. That is why you have to profit from the heat, the sunshine of autumn, of summer, in order to cut the wood and to keep a pile of wood so that you can bring home at the end of autumn. And if you spend your time doing nothing, you cannot survive the winter. That is why you are with that friend and feel that you can survive. Profit from this moment in order to practice, to cultivate enough energy of mindfulness, of concentration, of freedom, of solidity, so that when you go home to your place, you'll be able to survive. A retreat is something like that. And it is an opportunity. It's a pleasure to talk to each other, of course. But if you don't profit from the retreat in order to master the practice of being oneself, to get the habit of generating the energy of mindfulness and concentration, and then when we go home, we cannot be ourselves. We cannot help others. And this is why the noble silence is very helpful. Because the noble silence helps us to be ourselves, to profit from every moment of being here in order to generate the energy of mindfulness and concentration. And generating the energy of mindfulness and concentration, if it has become a habit, then it will be wonderful. Every time the energy of fear and sorrow and anger come up, we know what to do. We need only to go home to our in-breath and out-breath, and then the energy is generated. And it's possible for us to recognize our afflictions, to embrace them, to make friends with them, and to continue. And we can help other friends to do the same also. Our mind can be seen as having two layers. And the upper layer is called mind consciousness. Mind consciousness. And the lower layer can be called store consciousness. It is like a house with a basement and a living room. And this is sometimes we consider this to be the earth, the soil of our consciousness. All the seeds are buried here. The seed of understanding, the seed of love, the seed of joy, the seed of happiness are always here. And the seed of sorrow, the seed of fear, the seed of despair, they are all there. And when you hear a Dharma talk, the Dharma talk will fall like rain on the soil of store consciousness. It penetrates into the seed of joy and make the seed of joy sprout and bring forth flowers here. When you read an article in a magazine that contains violence and fear, the article waters the seed of anger in you, it sprouts, and it brings forth a flower of anger, of fear, of discrimination. So it depends on the kind of rain that you have, that what kind of seed down here will come up. Down here they call seeds. And up here they are called mental formation. Tâm hành, chủng. In the teaching of Buddhism, we speak of 51 categories of seeds. And among them, mindfulness is one. Mindfulness has a seed. And if you practice mindful walking, mindful sitting, mindful cooking, mindful drinking, mindful eating, and then the seed of mindfulness becomes stronger and stronger. It grows stronger here. And when we need it to come up, it comes up very easily. But if you don't practice, it remains a small seed. Your anger also. When you were a baby, the seed of anger may be still very small. But if your parents do not know how to take care of you, if you are exposed to the kind of environment that is full of violence and anger, and then the seed of anger will grow up like this. When you watch television, you watch, you get in touch with the violence in society, the seed of anger and violence go up like this. And then they will manifest and occupy the living room of the mind. So our happiness depends entirely on our seeds. There are people who are very angry now. 10 years ago, they were not angry like that. They were not violent like that. Because they have allowed the seed of anger in them to be watered every day, every day, every day. And that is why it's very important not to allow the seed of anger and violence to be watered every day. There are ways to do that. And in the Dharma discussion, we can discuss how to prevent the seed of anger to be watered every day. And everyone has experiences. And then in a Dharma discussion, we may discuss as how for the seed of mindfulness, the seed of joy, the seed of compassion to be watered every day. And the Sangha is a place where we learn. We put into the practice what we learn. If you have a family, your partner, your children will profit from the practice. You can organize so that your family becomes a unit, a practice unit. You know how to help yourself, your partner, and your children to avoid watering the seed of violence and anger and fear. And every day you organize so that the seed of joy, understanding, compassion be watered many times. This is a problem of organization. You can organize your practice. And your practice may be very natural. It does not look as a practice, but it's a real practice. We have our intelligence. We need to use our intelligence in order to organize our daily life, the daily life of our family, so that we can take good care of the seed in here. And the practice is called the practice of selective watering. This word we have invented in Plum Village. You water only the good seeds, and you refrain from water the negative seeds in you. When your child consumes television 3 hours a day, he might bring a lot of poisons into himself or herself, because the TV programs they are consuming may contain a lot of anger and violence. You allow your child to intoxicate herself. That's not good for her. That's not good for you. That's not good for our society. If we allow these items of consumption to water the seed of discrimination, of hate, they're good not for his profit, for our own profit, and for the profit of our society. And this must be arranged now. You have your insight. As from now on, we organize our life in such a way that can protect us, that can protect members of our family, our friends. Because our suffering, our happiness depend entirely on the seeds we have in our store consciousness. And although our children are still very young, we can sit down with them and discuss about this. They are able to understand. In the last few years, every summer we had children sitting with us in Dharma talks. And the children show the capacity of understanding. They understand all these things. They are ready to cooperate with us. We have to treat them equally. That help them to be aware, to be responsible. They know that they have a role to play in the happiness of the family and society. They grow much quicker, much more quickly. The practice of selective watering can bring forth result in very, very quickly. 1 hour of practice can make a big difference already. Look at the person you love. She has all kinds of seeds in herself. She has her talent, her joy, her suffering, her anger. Now if you water her anger, well, in 5 minutes, you see. You bring the worst out of her. But if you know how to water the seed of her compassion, her joy, her understanding, then she will bloom like a flower just after 20 minutes of practice. And that is for her to enjoy herself. And that is for you to enjoy herself also. Believe me, the practice of selective watering can bring results very quickly. And you can do it. You are just telling the truth. Because that person has many good seeds in her, in him. And if you recognize that you sit and you say, darling, you are wonderful. You can do this, you can do that. And then you water the seed of confidence, self-confidence in her. And she'll be the source of happiness, not only for her, for him, but for you also. That person is your garden. And you are the gardener. You should learn the art of flower watering. In every one of us, there are flowers, there are also garbage. If you water the garbage, you get the garbage. Garbage is the anger, the fear, the discrimination, the jealousy. The flower is compassion, understanding, love. Up to you, up to the gardener. You are a gardener. You have to take care of your own garden. And you might have to master the art of gardening. In fact, you have two gardens. Your own garden here and the person you love. If you don't know how to water, to practice selective watering of your own garden, you don't have enough, you won't have enough wisdom in order to have watering the flowers in the other person. So the garden is in yourself. You have to cultivate your garden well, and you will help cultivating his garden, her garden. And believe me, a week of practice can make a big difference. And you are intelligent enough, more than enough, to do the work. You have to take the situation in hands. You should not allow the situation to out of your control. You can do it. Every time you practice walking meditation, investing your mind, your body into every step. You take the situation in your hand. Every time you breathe in and know that you are breathing in. Every time you breathe out and you smile to your out breath. And you are yourself. You are the boss. You are the master. You are the gardener of your own garden. We rely on you to do it, to take good care of your garden, so that you can help taking care of her garden, of his garden. And when you have succeeded with you and with that person, you become a sangha, a two-person sangha. And you become a refuge for a third person, and the sangha will grow. There is mutual understanding between you and her, between you and him. But before that become a reality, you have to understand yourself. Self-understanding will bring about mutual understanding. You understand that you have blocks of fear, suffering, anger. You understand that you have the seed of joy and peace and confidence. And understanding that, you practice so that you can water the good seeds and make your garden beautiful. And when your garden beautiful, it's so easy to help the other person. If your garden is not beautiful, it's very hard to help the other person. If your garden is beautiful, you are fresh, you are compassionate, your look, your smile are very pleasant. And anything you try to do to help will have an effect. But if you don't have that freshness, that beauty in your garden, no matter how hard you try, you cannot help the other person to transform himself. So take good care of your garden. And that is not an abstract thing. It's very concrete. You can do it every moment of your daily life. You can do it here now with the Sangha. So tomorrow you can continue to do it when you go home to your place. Take good care of your garden in order to help take care of the garden of the other. When mutual understanding is there, communication is good, happiness is possible, and you too become a refuge for a third person or fourth person, and that is the process of peace. That is the peace process. That is the real roadmap. The peace process does not come from Washington, D.C. The roadmap does not come from Washington, D.C. It comes from your own heart. It comes from you. It comes from your beloved one. And you too, you form a multitude. If there are enough of you who know how to handle the fear, the anger, who know how to calm yourself, and then you can organize a people peace conference. You don't need your government to do it, because your government have tried very hard in the past, but have not succeeded. Because they don't really know the peace process. They don't know the peace roadmap. They talk about it. They think in terms of politics. They don't know how to think of peace in terms of humanity, humaneness. When the warring parties come to a peace conference, they are full of, each side is full of suspicion, anger, mistrust. And with that, in the heart, not much can be achieved, because there is no peace inside in order to really make peace with the other side. To me, negotiators for peace should have some peace within themselves. At least they should know how to handle the anger, the fear, the suspicion in them. And peace talks are always organized in such a way that people, right in the beginning, begin to talk about peace, making a lot of proposals, making a lot of discussion. But a real peace talk, a real peace convention should be organized like a retreat. It means both warring parties, both groups will be given the time to calm themselves, to take care of their emotions, their fear, their suspicion. There should be time in order for each side to cultivate their own garden. That those of us who know how to help, those of us who have come from the Middle East, who know something about the practice of calming, of resting, of embracing our fear, our anger, those of us, we can help to prepare the ground for mutual understanding. You see, I just told you about your individual garden. We have to go home to our own garden in order to take good care of it. We should know the art of selective watering so that we have enough calm, enough peace, enough hope, enough joy in us, so that we can help the other person to cultivate the same. Have to go home to ourselves and take care of our own garden. And this is step one. And when our garden has begun to offer flower, we know that we can begin to help other person. So this is the step 2. Your beloved one. There is suffering, there is difficulty in your beloved one. And now, as you have become a beautiful garden, you can go to her and help. And she will do exactly like you. She will have an opportunity to go home to herself. Those who don't know the practice, they always, in the very beginning, try to go out to the other person. You have to change. You have to do this, you have to do that in order for me and you to be together. And the other person is doing the same. No one knows the practice of going home. So this is the real peace process. And when you can help the other person to do the same, and help her garden to be beautiful, and then mutual understanding become possible. Real communication is possible. This is the roadmap. This is the peace process. And I believe very strongly that if there are enough of you who know the art of cultivating our own garden, and then we can organize a peace conference. And the Israeli group can practice together 1 week or 2 weeks, going back to themselves and cultivate their own garden. Meanwhile, the Palestinian group will do the same. We need people who know the practice of calming, of embracing, of smiling, so that we calm down our emotion, our fear, our mistrust, so that communication can be possible. If peace negotiation always fail because people don't start with that. They are in a hurry, they want to discuss right away. But mutual understanding cannot be possible with a lot of suffering and fear and suspicion in every side. It's possible for you to organize a peace conference, a people peace conference, somewhere in the Middle East, even in Plum Village, in Paris. And you can have the international press to come and see how you do. You are practicing peace. You are not discussing peace. You are practicing peace. You are establishing real communication with the other group. Relationship between a couple, whether you are son or father, you are a couple. Whether you are partner and partner, or son and father, or mother and daughter. If you have a difficult relationship, and if you want to make peace with him, with her, you have to go through this process. The father has to go home to himself. And if possible, the son will go home to himself. And if the son may be the initiator of the peace process, he knows that he has to help himself before he can help his father. So he goes home to his garden and cultivate the flower of compassion, understanding, and joy. And after he succeeded, he comes to the father, fresh, compassionate. Before that, he cannot help his father. He feels that it is impossible. He can never help his father to transform. But now, since he has transformed himself, he becomes pleasant, becomes joyful, a lot of compassion. He knows that he can help transform his father. Before that, it looked like there's no hope. No hope to reconcile with the other person, even if he is your own father. Last year, in a retreat in northern Germany, in the city of Oldenburg, we had 6 days, 6 entire days for the practice. The first, the second, the third day are for the practice of going home and practicing calming, embracing, looking deeply. The third, the fourth day, the fifth day, we learn about peaceful communication. How to use the practice of listening deeply and with compassion. How to use loving speech in order to communicate. Because listening with compassion and using kind, loving speech is very important to open up communication. In the beginning, people found it very difficult to use loving speech because they have got a lot of anger. Father and son could not look at each other. Mother and daughter could not look at each other. Impossible for them to use loving speech and to listen, because when you listen, you get irritated because the other person is watering the seed of irritation in you. But after 3 days, 4 days of practice, the seed of compassion and understanding in everyone was watered by the Dharma talks. Because everyone has the seed of compassion and understanding. Everyone is capable of recognizing that they are not only the one who suffer, the other person suffer also very deeply. and we are partly responsible for the suffering of the other person. And when you realize that, you can look at the other person with compassion, with the eyes of compassion. Oh, now I know that he suffers a lot also. Not only I suffer, but she has suffered a lot also. And I used to blame him for my suffering, but I know that I have been partly responsible for my suffering, and I have made him suffer also. So the moment when you are enlightened like that, you get understanding. And with understanding and compassion, suddenly you can look at him or her with compassion. The situation changes. And suddenly you find you can listen to him, you can listen to her with compassion. And the way you look at him now is different. The way you listen to him now is quite different. It changed the whole situation. It makes communication possible. Oh my God, I didn't know that he also has suffered that much. And I have been responsible for his suffering also. In the past, I believed that I am the only one who suffered. I didn't know that she has suffered also a lot. So that moment when you get that kind of enlightenment, understanding, your eyes are different. Your words are different. And communication is possible. On the eve of the 5th day, I gave the instructions as how to reconcile with your beloved one. And I told them that you have until midnight tonight in order to complete your work of reconciliation. And the Dharma talk was given at 9 o'clock in the morning. And I told the people in the retreat, 600 people or more, to do the work of reconciliation using loving speech and compassionate listening in order to reconcile. And there was a day of practice. If your beloved one is in a retreat, you can come to her, can come to him, using the techniques of listening deeply, listening compassionately, using the technique of love and speech. Darling, I know that you have suffered a lot during many years. I have not been able to help you to suffer less. In fact, I have made the situation worse. I used to blame you for my suffering. But I know now that I have contributed to your suffering. I am sorry. Please give me a chance. I don't want you to suffer. I want you to be happy. Please tell me. I don't want to repeat the mistakes, the unskillfulness that I have done in the past. And if you don't help me, I cannot do that. So please help me. That kind of talking. And everyone in the retreat was able to talk like that. Before that, they did not believe that they are able to do like that. Because before that, the seed of understanding and compassion in them have not been watered. 4 or 5 days of selective watering can transform the whole situation. And they are able to do that on the 5th day. In the morning of the 6th day, 4 gentlemen, German, came to me and reported that last night they had used cell phones in order to talk to their fathers they were able to reconcile with the fathers just by using cell phones. It's remarkable, because the other person did not practice. The father who did not come to the retreat, they did not practice at all. Just one side, one person practice, and it can help the one who does not practice. It's a miracle. When you are transformed, when you have understanding and compassion in you, you can transform the other person. In fact, that night they were able to use loving speech. And they were able to open the door of their father's heart. And they got the reconciliation. They were very happy. And I knew that there were more people who have done that, but they were a little bit too shy to come to me and report. Last year also, in a retreat organized for Chinese in Macau, the same thing happened. There were people in the retreat who used telephone in order to call their husband, their wife, and reconcile. And on the last day, they came to me after the last tea meditation, and report to me that they had been able to reconcile with their wife or their husband that were at home, who could not come to the retreat. It is very crucial that we are able to water the seed of compassion and understanding in us. Come home to ourselves and do it with the help of the Sangha or without the help of the Sangha. And then when you are okay, you can come to him, you come to her and help him to do that. And mutual understanding, mutual communication is possible. Suppose you are not a person, but you are a group. You are a group of Palestinians who so much want peace. And now you know the peace process, the real peace process. You know the real map road for peace. It doesn't come from Washington, D.C. Look what he said yesterday about God. You should not look for God outside. You should not look for God in Washington, D.C., for peace in Washington, D.C. You should look for peace within our heart. And the peace process, the roadmap for peace, have to come from ourselves. And this is a real peace process. Peace always begins with yourself, your group, your people. We have to be peace in order to help the other side to make peace. We should not continue to blame the other side of not practicing peace. We have to practice peace and encourage the other group to practice peace. And suppose this is the Palestinian groups who know the peace process. They come together. They are not hurry in discussing peace. They take their time practicing peace, being peace. And when their garden is beautiful, they can approach the group of Palestinians, of Israelis. And meantime, if the Israeli group knows the peace process, they will do the same. And if they come together as two beautiful gardens, and mutual communication become very easy. I think in 6 months or 1 year, you can organize a people peace conference. You can organize in Paris. You can organize in the Middle East somewhere. And the world will come and listen to you and see you how to do peace, how you do peace. And this is a real peace process. Because you know what is the process. Peace always begins with you, with your group. And when you listen to the other group, with all your compassion, you see that their people suffer as much as your people. They are adults, they are children, they live in constant fear. And when you are able to see them as victims of suffering, the nectar of compassion flow in your heart, and you suffer less. And when you suffer less, you help them to suffer less. And then every agreement made on that kind of mutual understanding will be a real peace solution. A text signed by both parties. But if the fear, the anger, the suspicion still remain intact in both sides, that is only a piece of paper. It's not peace. But if there is compassion, understanding, mutual understanding, compassion, then even you don't need that piece of paper signed by both sides. And many of us in the world will come and support you in your peace conference, people peace conference, that will show the world, that will show your governments. And you can come and help your governments also. Your government will listen to you if you are a real entity of peace. I don't think that we should wait for our government. They may continue for a long time. They may not arrive anywhere. We have to take the situation in hands. We have to make peace. We have to organize the peace process with our own practice. You might spend time alone and write a letter to your partner, to your father, or to your son, or to your daughter, if you do have difficulties with him or with her. Give yourself 3 hours and write a letter. And use loving speech. During the time of writing that letter, you practice looking deeply into the nature, into the situation of your relationship. Why communication has been difficult? Why happiness was not possible? And you can begin like that. My dear son, I know you have suffered a lot during the past many years. I have not been able to help you, but I have made the situation worse. It's not my intention to make you suffer, my son. But maybe because I am not skillful enough. I try to impose my ideas on you, make you suffer. I think that you have made, in the past I thought that you make me suffer. My suffering is caused by you. But I now realize that I have been responsible for your own suffering. As a father, I don't want you to suffer. Please help me. Please tell me of my unskillfulness in the past so that I will not continue to make you suffer, because if you suffer, I will have to suffer too. I need your help, my dear son. We should be a happy couple, father and son. I'm determined to do it. Please help me. Please tell me what is in your heart. I promise to do my best, to refrain from saying things or doing things that make you suffer. But you need to help me. I need your help. Otherwise, I will not be possible to do it alone. Write a letter like that. Spend 3 hours, even one day, to write such a letter. I am sure that after you finish the letter, you feel much, much better in your heart. You become another person. That is what we call love and speech. In the past, every time I suffer, I was inclined to punish you, to say things or to do things that make you suffer. I think that that is the way to get a relief, but I was wrong. I realize now that anything I say or I do that make you suffer, that make me suffer also. I am determined not to do it anymore. But please help me. I have the confidence that after you have finished the letter, which is a process of peace, a process of transformation, you feel much better because peace is in you, understanding and compassion is in you. And now you will become very pleasant, much more pleasant to him or to her. And you can help him or her to transform. A miracle can be obtained in 24 hours. That is the practice of loving speech. It is coupled with the practice of deep listening, compassionate listening. Compassionate listening is very crucial. If you don't have compassion in you, you cannot listen. Because what the other person say may water the seed of irritation and anger in you, and you lose all your compassion. You are no longer able to listen. And to listen is very important. If you know how to listen for 1 hour, deeply with compassion, the other person will suffer much, much less. It's very healing, very transforming, the practice of compassionate listening. That is the practice of Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, the great being who has the capacity of deep listening. And you have that seed in you. When you listen to someone, you tell yourself that listening like this is to help him or her to suffer less. Because so far no one has listened to him or to her. No one has been able to listen with compassion. Even the therapist. Because the therapist has a lot of, may have a lot of suffering inside of her, inside of him. And although she pretends to listen deeply, but maybe she is listening to herself. If she does not know how to listen to herself, she does not know how to listen to you. And that is why you have to be the therapist. You have to be the bodhisattva and listen to your beloved one. And this is possible. First of all, you have to see that that person has suffered a lot. And you have made the situation worse. What you said in the letter is true. You believe in what you have said in the letter. And you want now to listen to her, to him. And you can look at her with compassion. Oh dear, she has suffered quite a lot. Partly of me. And you ask her to tell you what is in her heart. She may not be able to use loving speech yet. And in her speech, there may be a lot of bitterness, a lot of blaming, a lot of judgment. But if you are a bodhisattva, you can still continue to listen with compassion. And you can be a bodhisattva. The bodhisattva is in you and not outside of you. You say, I listen like this with only one purpose. That's to help the other person to suffer less. That is why even if his speech is full of judgment, bitterness, accusation, I'm still able to listen. The energy of compassion protects you. What the other person says cannot water the seed of irritation and anger anymore, because you are able to nourish compassion, to keep compassion alive. And compassion is mindfulness. I listen to him like that with only one purpose, to help him to suffer less. And if you can maintain that awareness alive, you are protected. The seed of irritation and anger in you will not be watered. And you can listen for 1 hour without being affected by what the other person said. You don't want to correct him or her, even if his speech is full of wrong perceptions, wrong accusation. You feel only compassion. Oh dear, that person is victim of so much wrong perceptions. You don't want to punish. You don't want to criticize, because you have compassion. And that is why you can continue to listen. And listening like that for 1 hour. 1 hour is a very healing. You are the bodhisattva. Don't look for the bodhisattva outside of you. Don't look for God outside of you. During the process of listening, you notice there's so much wrong perceptions, misunderstanding in her. And yet, you don't get angry. She is accusing you. She is bitter, but you don't get angry, because you are protected by compassion. I listen to her just because I want her to suffer less. And you know that you can help that person to remove wrong perceptions later on. You don't need to do it now. If you try to correct him or her right now, well, you spoil everything. So you just listen and you say, well, tomorrow, after tomorrow, plenty of time for me to offer her information that can help her to correct her wrong perceptions. So with that in mind, you are not in a hurry to correct him, to correct her. You are very peaceful. You are very compassionate. That is peace. And then a few days later, when you feel that the atmosphere is good, you begin to release some information. Darling, it was not like that. It was like this. You release just a little bit of information. Don't try to release all information at one time. The other person will not be able to bear it. Too much truth at one time is not good. So after 3 days, you release a few informations, and then 5 days or 6 days later, you release another set of informations, helping that person to correct her perceptions. This is a peace process. In a relationship between two people, whether that is partner and partner, son and father, mother and daughter, the process is exactly the same. The situation has dragged on for many years. But if you are determined to practice, well, 1 week is enough. 1 week or 2 weeks is enough for you to restore communication and to improve the quality of relationship and to make yourself happy, to make the other person happy. And when it comes to the situation of the two parties, two warring parties, it is exactly the same kind of process. Your group can begin to write a letter, a collective write a letter. And the language can be exactly the same. Dear people over there, we know that you have suffered a lot. Dear people over there, they are the Palestinians. They are the Israelis. Dear people over there, we know that during past many years you have suffered a lot. We thought that we were only the people who suffer, but now we realize that you have suffered quite a lot. We have not been able to help you to suffer less. In fact, we have made the situation much worse, which is the truth. It's not our intention to make your group suffer, because you have not been very skillful. You don't know the peace process. You have reacted with anger and frustration. You wanted to punish every time we suffer. That is why you have made situation worse. You don't believe more in punishment. We need your help. You don't want to continue like this. You want to really give you a chance to live peacefully and happily, so that we will be able to live peacefully and happily also. Because your peace, your happiness is very crucial for our own peace and happiness. If you don't have safety, security, and then we will have no safety and security. We recognize that we are. Our peace and safety depends on your peace and safety. That is why you should help us, and we should help you. Let's come together as brothers and not as opponents. Please tell us. We will listen to you. Palestinians and Israelis who used to come to Plum Village in the last many years, they were offered exactly the same kind of practice. During the first 5-6 days, they don't say anything, they just practice mindful breathing, mindful walking, recognizing the fear, the anger, the suffering in them, and to calm down. And then they would sit down and listen to the other group and recognize that the other group has suffered a lot also. And now they are able to look with the eyes of compassion. They are using deep listening, loving speech. And it's their turn to tell the other group about their suffering, their frustration. And then mutual understanding become a reality. And the two groups always come up together on the last day in order to give a report to the whole Sangha about their practice. They all make the vow to go home to the Middle East to organize Sangha so that many people can come and profit from the practice of peace. You are intelligent people. You have to use your intelligence, your lucidity to make peace in yourself, with your partner, with your beloved one, so that you can become instrument of peace, to make peace with the other group. They needly help you. They desperately need you, and you also need them. My suggestion of a People Peace Conference is just such a suggestion to illustrate the path of peace. And you know that in the world, so many people are concerned about the suffering in the Middle East. If you can do anything like that, like a People Peace Conference, it will have a tremendous power of education. Not only you educate yourself and the other group, but you educate the whole world about how to make peace. And many of us will come to listen to you, to observe you making peace. Not in the political way that has been used, but the real way of making peace. In your discussion, Dharma discussion, please share your experience on this. How you make peace with your beloved one. How can you become the refuge of a third person, of a fourth person, and so on.